those white kids are fishy as fuck. And right now, the insulated majority, white folks, we are doing what we've always done since the very first slave ship touched these shores, hiding behind comfortable complicity. We call it denial, but let's call it what the fuck it is: white racism.
360 says that he's on land, and he was like, well, no, I mean, well, we have his phone. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, okay. Because at that point, you're telling me, this is coming from Warren, don't worry about it. We're going to find him. It's going to be okay. Don't tell me not to worry. This is my child, my flesh and blood that I brought into this world. And you're telling me not to worry. Absolutely not. So then it was after the phone call ended, of course, asking him for information. What was he wearing? He was like, last seen, Northwest tip, black shorts, sunglasses. That's important. Before getting off the phone with Warren, he was like, hey, I know some people at Coast Guard. I said, okay. He's like, I'm gonna call Coast Guard, you call DMR.
We have new subpoenas in the Nolan Wells case, and yes, it is from Nolan Wells' family. This new subpoena is directed towards the sea towing company. She is requesting, Nolan Wells' mother, Christine, is requesting all the audio, the original audios, and their procedural information regarding what happens when there's a phone call, who gets the phone call, who gets the dispatch, how long does it take, all of that logistical information. This is now another subpoena that's going out.
Did you hear me? You know, it's contested. What's your location? What's going on? Because sea tow is an emergency sea towing call, they automatically log as soon as you call. Your GPS nav things are sent directly to sea tow. This is a safety precaution. It's also a federal compliance mandated feature, which means where they were when they called sea tow and the exact time. We don't need to rely on their boat's evidence anymore. We don't rely on anything. We can rely right to that Starlink satellite in the air that and log directly. This, I think, is going to be a groundbreaker. Again, people have said, oh, but the boat's on the thing, you can erase that. Nah, where were you when you called, and what was the exact time when you called? Now listen, if the friend's boat was allegedly sinking near Horn Island at 4:30 p.m., the sea tow computer logs will show the exact GPS location of where the distress signal oriented. If the coordinates show that the boat was moving away from the island toward the mainland while they claim Nolan was still walking on the sand, it proves their timeline is fabricated. All right? This will be cross-referenced with the LifeLock 360 tracking history the mother already has in her possession. Again, here's the thing. If nobody's lying, you don't got nothing to be worried about.
Black people took a white person out into the ocean and a white person did not come back, it would be international news. The president of the United States of America would be announcing it. He would have those white people at the White House sitting, having dinner with him every single day. He would hire the best of the best lawyers, the best of the best international guard. He would make sure that those black people, for spitting, were sitting in prison and jail and their families were accountable for it. He would dig up any dirt in the family and say it's because they're black. But no, silence. Not even New York News, New York Times. Nothing in there about Nolan Wells. Nothing. Oh, how crazy is that?
That the GPS doesn't show, but they did.
Jack is right there. Whoa. And everybody looking.
Just laid him on the back of the boat and got towed in part of the way. Then they got their boat running and they got on in. And when they got in, they couldn't figure out where they were going to put him or what they were going to do. So they dropped everybody off. Then they went back out to the island that the GPS doesn't show, but they did because they disconnected it. Okay? And none of them had their phones with them when they went back. So there wasn't any trace of them going back. And they dumped the body. They came back, took the boat out of the water, then went over there at 3 a.m. and washed the boat, thinking washing the boat would get all the DNA and everything off the boat.
On the 4th of July, a boat full of young people took an 18-year-old black boy named Nolan Wells out to a Mississippi island. Here are the public facts. The boat leaves the island at 4:31 p.m. Nolan isn't on it, but nobody in that group calls his mother. She doesn't get a phone call until 11 p.m., nearly 7 hours later. When she tracks his location, his phone isn't out in the Gulf of Mexico. It's sitting in a house connected to someone from that trip. The white friends claim Nolan refused to get on their boat because he wanted to stay behind with a girl. But that girl told police Nolan said he was walking right back over there to leave with them. That single statement shatters the white boy's story. Nolan was found 2 days later, face down, fully clothed, shoes and all. Ask yourself, how many people accidentally drowned at a summer beach party that can swim while fully dressed? I'm just looking at the facts, folks, and to me, those white kids are fishy as fuck. And right now, the insulated majority, white folks, we are doing what we've always done since the very first slave ship touched these shores, hiding behind comfortable complicity. We call it denial, but let's call it what the fuck it is. White racism. It is the narrative engine that has always given the lies of white supremacy a fucking pass, excused institutional failure, and kept the machine running. 581. That is how many black Americans were butchered in the Mississippi dirt, lynched. Execution for the killers, for the white killers, 0. Prison sentences for the white terrorists, none. The machine didn't just run on hate, it ran on a dominant culture that watched the blood spill and looked the other way. Yes, the insulated majority has a terrifying gag reflex when you shove a mirror in its fucking face. In 1955, an all-white jury let Emmett Till's killers walk free. They knew the machinery of Southern justice would always protect them, and it did. Even after they admitted that they'd killed Emmett Till, it still protected them. Accountability? It's a ghost story. We traded the lynch ropes for a clean escape. But people looking the other way just sets a trap for more white racism. Black people are still turning up dead under mysterious circumstances. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed to work. So when a young black college athlete, a survivor in prime physical shape, who knew how to swim, goes out to Horton Island with a group of white kids and is the only one who doesn't come back breathing, we know the script. That benefit of the doubt is just a get-out-of-jail-free card printed exclusively in white ink. But the gatekeepers of accountability, they take one look at a dead black boy, shrug their shoulders, and say they don't suspect foul play. Imagine if that was a white boy on that boat with 3 black kids. The world would stop spinning. There would be helicopters, federal probes, primetime specials. And what happens next? The internet rushes to close ranks. You call a grieving black mother a race baiter. You demand her silence to protect the illusion of your fake fucking innocence. You know, black folks in this country aren't weak. They are survivors. They aren't paranoid. They're just not fucking blind. They know exactly how fast a badge and a gavel will twist into knots to shield the protected color. And here's the ultimate truth we refuse to look at. The cage we built to trap others, we locked ourselves inside it. The lies of white supremacy is a disease, and this comfortable complicity is a form of self-enslavement. Here's the honest truth as I sit here today. None of us outside of that island know exactly how Nolan Wells took his last breath in that water. But we know exactly what the white reflex does after the water. It proves day after day that black life is worth less than a white lie.
Hi, what's up? Welcome back and please subscribe. A girl needs subscribers. So, person may ask, why do we need these new subpoenas? Do they matter? Because the biggest piece of evidence in a case is not a dramatic video or a witness standing in front of camera. Sometimes it's a phone call, it's a timestamp, it's a dispatch record, and in the Nolan Wells case, the legal team representing his estate is now going after exactly that kind of evidence. The new subpoenas are focused on STO Services International, also referred to as STO, and World Marine Services, the companies that operate STO South Mississippi. And here's the part that really caught my attention. The attorneys are not just asking for general records, they are focusing on every aspect and specific time window between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. on July 4th. Why these 6 hours? Because according to the information surrounding the case, this was a critical period of the boat emergency leading up to Nolan's being reported missing. And when you are trying to figure out what happened to someone, the timeline matters. A lot of people think some people remember events differently. One person says a call happened at one time, another person remembered it happening later on. Someone may remember what they were told, but not exactly who told them. And after enough time passes, memories can become messy. But a dispatch log doesn't wake up one day and say, you know what, I think I'll remember this differently. And timestamp is a timestamp. That's why these records could be extremely important. The subpoenas reportedly seek call logs, recordings, dispatch records, and communications connected to the emergency during those hours. The legal teams wants to know who contracted the zero and what was the communication, what instructions were given, and what happened after the initial request for help. And then we get to the question that could become one of the most important parts of this investigation. Was the rescue response ever changed or cancelled? And if it was, who made the decision? That's not a small question. If there was a change in the response, investigators need to know when it happened, why it happened, and who authorized it, and what information was being used to make that decision. Because when someone is in an emergency on the water, every minute matters. This is not somebody deciding whether to order pizza now or wait another 20 minutes. You've been talking about a boat emergency and a person who eventually went missing. That makes communication trail incredibly important, and this is where World Marine Services comes into the picture. So the World Marine operates STO South Mississippi, which is why the company was subpoenaed alongside CITO. The attorney are looking for records and that could help establish exactly what happened between the people involved and the Marine Services during those critical hours. Who called? Who answers? Who answered? What was said? What were the instructions given? Did someone request a response? Was that response changed? Was it cancelled? And if something changed, who gave the order? Those are the kinds of questions that the records can help answer. And there is another part of that, these subpoenas, that I think deserves more attention. The attorneys are also seeking CITO's policies, procedures, and training materials for responding to boats that were taken on water or sinking. Now, why does that matter? Because investigators are not only trying to figure out what happened, they may also be trying to understand what should have happened. That's a major difference. If a company standard procedure says that a certain emergency requires a specific response, investigators can compare that procedure with what actually happened in Nolan's case. Did the response follow the normal protocol? Was something unusual? Was a decision made that wasn't consistent with the company's own procedures? Like, those are the type of questions. You get it? And let's be clear. A subpoena does not automatically prove wrongdoing. It doesn't tell us that somebody deliberately did something wrong. It doesn't give us the final answer. What it does tell us is that Nolan Wells' legal team believes these records could be important enough to formally demand them. And honestly, that is why I think this development deserves attention. The investigation appears to be moving beyond simply asking people what they remember. It's now looking for records that can help build an independent timeline. That's powerful. Because if different people give different versions of events, the records may help determine what actually happened. Imagine having the calls, dispatch times, communications, instructions, and official procedures all lined up. Suddenly, the story isn't just based on memory. You can start putting the pieces together. At what time did the emergency begin? Who knew about it? Who was contacted? What response was initiated? Did something change? When did it change? And what happened during those 6 hours before Nolan was reported missing? Those are the questions that matter, and that's why the 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. window is so significant. 6 hours might sound like a small period of time, but in an emergency, 6 hours can contain the entire story. A phone call can change everything, a decision can change everything, and sometimes one timestamp can completely change the way we understand what happened. So now, the focus is on the records, not rumors, not speculation, not who remembers what from months or years ago. The records. And if those records reveal something that hasn't been previously been understood about the response to Nolan's emergency, then we could be looking at a very important development in the case. Because at the end of the day, the question is not simply what do people say happened. The bigger question is what does the timeline show actually happened? And those 6 hours may have a lot to say. So tell me what you think in the comment section, and if you're new here or even you've watched this video up to this point and you've not subscribed, please do so. Subscribe to this channel. Bye.